Many experts drew attention to one very interesting pattern that began to alarm the top leadership of the North Atlantic Alliance. In particular, almost every week the Russian Defense Ministry began to officially report the destruction of places of deployment of personnel of the armed forces of Ukraine and foreign mercenaries, not only on the line of combat contact, but also in deep behind enemy lines. Moreover, almost every time after these Russian missile strikes, information appears about the destruction of high-ranking NATO officers. At the same time, it is worth noting that the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation still does not officially confirm or deny the fact that dozens of active soldiers and officers of the armies of Western countries, including even some NATO generals, are killed during missile strikes on military facilities on the territory of Ukraine. Surprisingly, each time after the next successful Russian missile attack on the territory of Ukraine, accidents occur in Western countries by a strange coincidence, as a result of which dozens of NATO soldiers and high-ranking officers allegedly die. As an example, we can recall the official report of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, dated March 18, 2024. Back then, representatives of the Russian Defense Ministry officially reported that combat aviation, along with missile forces, destroyed the place where the meeting of the commanders of the Security Service of Ukraine and the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense took place. Unfortunately, in such cases, as always, the Russian Defense Ministry never reports the details of its military operations, and carefully hides the details of missile strikes. However, influential Russian telegram channels, many of which are run by representatives of the security agencies of the Russian Federation, including active and former officers of the military department, continue to report details of Russian missile strikes. In particular, they stated that on that day, Russian missiles destroyed the headquarters of the so-called Russian Volunteer Corps, which, according to the Russian side, was created by Western special services exclusively for attacks on Russian border regions. According to preliminary data, more than 50 militants were killed during that missile strike, including commanders of the Security Service of Ukraine and the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense. Moreover, the so-called foreign mercenaries were also among the dead. It was after this missile strike that the activity of Ukrainian militants and foreign mercenaries on the border of the Belgorod and Kursk regions decreased significantly. How Russian intelligence manages to discover and destroy top-secret enemy military installations on the territory of Ukraine remains a mystery to the NATO leadership. The fact that over the past 30 days, Russian missiles have managed to destroy dozens of secret military installations of the armed forces of Ukraine and NATO behind enemy lines indicates that Russian intelligence has reached the highest level in obtaining valuable information in this Eastern European country. Moreover, the recent missile strike on the secret place of the deployment of the personnel of the elite nationalist formations Luty and the Tsunami, in Krenomorsk, which killed 550 militants and 2 generals along with dozens of high-ranking NATO officers, forced the Security Service of Ukraine to launch mass detentions in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine. According to Russian telegram channels, citing their own sources in Kiev, over the past 3 days, more than 40 people, suspected of passing classified data to Russian intelligence, have been detained by the Security Service of Ukraine. The fact that there are high-ranking officers in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine, who regularly transmit classified information to Russian intelligence, finally became clear after the missile strike on the STAROKONSTANTINOV airbase, which occurred on March 17, 2024. As it turned out, Russian ballistic missiles and kamikaze drones hit this military airbase exactly at the moment when high-class Polish engineers arrived there, in order to install Storm Shadow cruise missiles under the wings of Su-24 tactical frontline bombers. As it turned out, Ukrainian engineers were never able to effectively integrate Western cruise missiles into the weapons system of Su-24. As a result, to solve this problem, the NATO leadership, in complete secrecy, sent to Ukraine a group of Polish specialists from 2 Polish aircraft factories that produce components for Western fighter jets, including the F-16. The task of the Poles was to integrate Storm Shadow cruise missiles into the armament of the Su-24. However, unfortunately for NATO, these Polish specialists were immediately destroyed as soon as they appeared on the territory of the STAROKONSTANTINOV airbase, having failed to complete the task. According to preliminary data, as a result of a combined attack using cruise missiles and kamikaze drones, 8 Polish high-ranking officers and 15 Polish engineers were destroyed. How the Russians found out about the arrival of Polish specialists at this military airbase remains a mystery. There is no doubt that the loss of such valuable engineers has dealt another devastating blow to the combat capabilities of the North Atlantic Alliance, which continues to suffer huge losses on the territory of Ukraine.